Sorry. 1 minute? I've been told by the TV I have to wait 1 minute.
Just tell us.
Tell some jokes while we're waiting for the Rogers to catch up with us. Will Rogers let us know when I can start our meeting? One of the Ford brothers? I think so too. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another meeting of City Council. My name is Councillor Adair, and I will be chairing the meeting of City Council tonight. Her Worship Deb Haswell is away, and I am the acting mayor until her return. At this time, I would ask that we have a moment of silent reflection, and if we could remember those RCMP officers and particularly their families in Moncton. And thank you. Are there any additional items from Council? Councillor Wright. Can you tell me what? Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have just a little report on FCM.
Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I'd like to speak about the 7th Annual Seniors Fair, and I'd also like to talk about some trees that were planted recently.
Okay. Staff? Okay. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Members of council, seeing. Yes. Councillor Twaddle.
Yeah. I'll be declaring a pecuniary interest. I was just looking up the number with regards to 12B6, the Rodeo. There's a potential sponsorship agreement with my employer.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor McManamy.
Thank you, Your Acting Worship. In the minutes of the Operations Committee meeting, item 12C5, I had declared a pecuniary interest with not even there as it involved a family member.
Any other declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, confirmation of the minutes of May 26.
Moved by myself and seconded by Arlene Wright that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on May 26, 2014 as printed be adopted.
All those in favor? That motion is carried. Resolution moving committee in council into committee of the whole.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wright that City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now into committee of the whole. We have a public meeting to talk about the former water reservoir on 8th Street, and I will turn things over to the Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. On May 30th, a notice respecting the city's intention to stop up and close, declare surplus, and dispose of municipal property known as the former water reservoir on 8th Street East was published in the Sun-Times, posted on the city's website, posted on the property, and provided to all neighbors within a 120-meter buffer zone of the subject property. The comments that were received prior to the agenda being published have been included with the agenda. The comments received after the agenda was published have been circulated to members of council and the media and will be available as part of the agenda when it is republished tomorrow. The personal information collected at this public meeting is collected under the authority of the Municipal Act. The information collected will be used to complete the disposal of surplus land process and will form part of the public record. Questions about this collection should be addressed to myself.
Okay. I understand that, Mr. Furness, you were going to say a few words, and then we'll open it to the public.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council directed staff over a year ago to review city-owned properties and buildings and determine if they're required for municipal purposes. The intent was to identify properties no longer required for municipal purposes which could be further developed. To date, staff have reviewed a number of properties, including unopened road allowances, the former jail and court building, currently looking at 19th Street West, and the former water reservoir. Redevelopment properties add to the assessment base and reduce the ongoing maintenance costs to the city, particularly if there's buildings involved. Part of the process of selling municipal properties involves declaring a property surplus and holding a public meeting to hear public comment. Tonight is the public meeting for council to hear comments on the 8th Street East former water reservoir. Council will not be making any decisions tonight, but listening to the public comment. At a future meeting, a report will come back to council for direction on declaring the property surplus. A number of comments have been received and included in the council package. Staff have also had conversations with numerous landowners, either in person or by phone. We've also had some discussions with some developers. All the developers that I've spoken to, I've told them that the city must go through a public process in order to declare the property surplus. The comments from adjacent residents are understandable and appreciated, and we welcome further comments. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are any members of the public here, please feel free to come up to the podium and state your name and address.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My comments are obviously in response to the advertised intention.
Sorry, just for the record, if you could state your name and address, please.
Okay, Jacob de Boer, 770 7th Street A East, Owen Sound, and for K1K7.
Thank you.
My comments are in response to your advertised intention to sell the property known as the former water reservoir on 8th Street. I understand the need to generate funds through the sale of properties as City Council, like many other levels of government, is in need of cash to pay for provincial governments downloading, overspending, etc. Our property at 770 7th Street A East, where we have lived for 48 years, abuts the land described above. I suppose it is easy to understand why we object to the property in question to be sold, as eventually some structure will be built on what is now pleasant green space. Although I have no knowledge about building, construction, and the bylaws pertaining to it, I assume that because of the peculiar features of the former water reservoir property, only a condominium, an apartment building, student residences, and the like can be erected at this location. This will affect the enjoyment of our garden and backyard and privacy greatly. An institutional building will reduce the resale value of our house substantially, which is especially painful at a time when, because of our advanced age, my wife and I could consider the sale of our house so we could move into a facility for the elderly. You may accuse me of jumping to conclusions somewhat ahead of the actual sale of the property, but I assure you that in 81 years of living, I have learned not to anticipate favorable outcome at the request as I have made now. I.e., much of anything I have mentioned above will change your plans. I challenge you to prove me wrong. There was a time long ago when I was naive and believe that those in authority actually considered their constituents' well-being uppermost on their mind. I wish your actions will make these simpler times a new reality. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments? Yes, come up, Vicky.
Good evening. My name is Frank LePay. I live at 764 8th Street, which is directly across the road from the park. And I realize as probably it's going to be inevitable anyway, but what would the zoning be on that, and what would you consider as going in there? Is there anything at this point? Will it be residential, or will it be apartment buildings, old age, or what?
I'm not sure.
The current zoning is zoned R4, which allows for a range of residential development types. Single-family home, duplexes, and I believe larger homes, but I may...
But not, I guess, in my case, I've seen a student residence up at the college, and it's although very nice, architecturally nice, it's a little noisy and everything else.
I can't say for sure whether that's would not be or would be included in the zoning. It's residential. I'd have to look and talk to the planner and see what was specifically proposed.
Okay. The other thing was looking at the map and so forth, where would the primary entrance be? Would it be off 8th, or would it be on the byway on 7th?
Through your worship, the site plan approval process would still have to be, a developer would still have to go through that process, which would include how the buildings were laid out, access, elevations, drainage, all the normal development process. Mm-hmm. That would all have to be done through the site plan process.
Okay, so, because going into it, obviously there's a big dip down.
Correct.
Would that, you can't say at this point whether it would remain or what, or would that become the basement?
How that property would be developed would be up to a developer.
Yeah. Do you anticipate any changes in the width of 8th Street there?
Sorry?
Do you anticipate any changes in the width of 8th Street at that point?
I can't, I just don't have any information on that, or whether that would be something that would be proposed.
Yeah, I just remember we've lived there for 14 years, and we used to sit in our front veranda and talk to people as they walk by. And over the years, the traffic has got to the point where you can't sit on your front veranda anymore and talk. So if it were to widen the road or something else, I don't think I would be very happy.
Can I suggest that the meeting tonight is in regards to whether or not the city should declare the property surplus and sell it? As Steve Renessa said, it is presently zoned R4. In the eventuality the city did sell it, there is another process that a developer would need to go through in order to develop that property, which would also include public meetings about roads and traffic studies, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Adair, council members, my name is Vicki Tichborne. My address is 780 7th Street A East. Before I read the thing I've prepared, may I ask a question still arising from the last speaker who was up? Does nobody know what R4 means?
Mm-hmm.
He asked what if something's designated R4.
It's a residential zoning, but a student residence could become in different forms and models, and we don't know until the developer comes forward. But R4 allows for detached and semi-detached duplex and townhomes and converted dwellings. So.
Okay, thank you.
Ms.
For clarifying that.
Okay, the planner indicates that is correct.
Thank you. Before, I did submit a letter, but I am talking about something a little bit different right at the moment. Before City Council considers approval of the sale of this parcel of land for development, I request that an in-depth neighborhood impact study be completed. As this is the only green space in this neighborhood and the only place for neighborhood children to play, there are a number of considerations that I feel must be given due study and process. I've outlined here, but I'm not going to read it because I think I've even got my east, west, north, but I have described in this, and I will hand a copy to whoever is supposed to hand this to. I've described where there are any parks outside of where this green space is, and I can assure you they're all far, far, far far away or non-existent, okay? Bayview School is in the immediate neighborhood, and many children walk to and from school. Development is likely to cause additional traffic along school routes. Therefore, a traffic study for this area, including traffic on both 7th and 8th Avenue, should be part of this study. Increased traffic also increases noise pollution in the area. All people who are most directly impacted by decision to sell this land to a developer deserve to have a voice, be that in support of or in opposition to this plan. Therefore, I request that a public meeting be held, and I don't consider this to be the one, but thank you for this one, be held to discuss how a neighborhood impact study will be conducted. There will be major impacts on the quality of life as well as property values for the residents of this area. This neighborhood deserves no less than what is outlined in this request. An important part of the job of the mayor and city council members is to listen to their constituents. I will be more than disappointed if this council refuses to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tichborne. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak on this issue? Going once, going twice. Thank you. I'll declare this public meeting closed. Thank you. We have no deputations tonight. Yes, Councillor Lemon.
At this time, I would request we have two items that there are a large number of people here for. One is the former Marine Rail and the disposition of monies on that and accepting the business plan, and the other being the art gallery. And there are people here for that as well. So I would ask those two items to be brought up as all these people are here at this time.
Can we wait till we get to reports from committees and staff? I would like to find out if there's any questions from the public and deal with correspondence first.
After that, yes.
Thank you. We're at public question period. Does anyone have any questions for City Council this evening? Please come up and state your name and address. And it does have to be in the form of a question. Whether we have an answer for you or not is another matter.
Understood. Thank you, Your Worship and council members. My name is Gary Morgan, 157 2nd Avenue East. The question itself arises from sewer and water rates. I was in the block that was affected by the February-March run water order to prevent water pipes freezing. In looking at my last water bill, the question I have is, actual water usage on the bill was $45, yet the final bill was $223. Now, it's the service charge and the wastewater rate that affects that bill. Now, we are a family of 5 people, single dwelling, and we are conscientious about using water-reducing devices, shower heads, low-flow shower heads, all this. Now, the question I have is, if you are being charged a metered rate of water coming into the house, is it possible to be charged a metered outflow rate through the sewer? Because of the fact that a lot of water sometimes that is used outside, you're using it outside, it doesn't go through the sewer system if you're doing gardens or anything like that. So the question is it possible to meter outflow to better reflect the actual usage, for the sewer system?
Okay.
Thank you.
That's your question. Thank you. Apparently the city manager has an answer to that.
Your Worship, I'm not sure I can give you an inclusive answer tonight, but certainly the technology is not currently there in any cost-effective way to do that. Municipalities in Ontario don't do that sort of metering because it can't be done accurately and cost-effectively.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the public this evening? Seeing none, we have correspondence, There are no correspondence, so let's move on from that. We have reports. Councillor Lemon, you had asked for 2 reports to be brought forward.
That is correct, Your Acting Worship. I asked for the museum report to come forward and the report on the art gallery. Both have public interest here.
Do you have the numbers for that?
Yeah.
So 12B3, thank you, which is a report from the Director of Financial Services in regards to the Community Waterfront Heritage Center. Just give us a moment, Councillor Lemon, to I'll find that.
And the other one is 12B9.
Well, let's deal with one at a time, please.
Yeah, well, I agree 100%. And in bringing this forward, the Community Waterfront Heritage Center has done a lot of work. We've received a fairly extensive report, and they are asking that they be granted the remainder of the year's monies that were allocated in our budget to the museum, which is about $24,000, and I believe that that is most appropriate. They have taken over the facility, as we're well aware, and in our budget, original budget for grants, we had allocated for a 12-month period, but they did not have occupancy for the first 3 months of the year. So what we'd be granting is 9/12 of the residue, and I think that that is a fair request by them. And I would therefore move that they have complied with what we requested in terms of providing a detailed financial plan. And according to my calculations, the Marine Rail, our report, the approved budget this year was $33,050, and that was that came down to that number because of a 5.8% decrease of $2,035 from the 1913 budget. The January to March allocation, I didn't do days, I did it by month, would be $8,262.50 for Marine Rail, and that would of course go to the Owen Sound Museums, who were in control at that time. But the remaining $24,787.50 is the amount that we allocated in the city budget for the Marine Rail. And suggestion was that perhaps that money might go to Owen Sound Museums, but I would oppose this on the grounds that the total to the Owen Sound Museums would go up to $64,537.50, and that's an increase of 62.36%, which is far more than any other department within the city, and I believe that it is fully justified to give that money to the new group that are operating the Marine Rail, and I would therefore make that a motion that the residue, the prorated residue, be allocated to the new Community Waterfront Center group. That is my motion.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion of that motion? No. Yes, Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification on the motion, it doesn't name an amount, or does it? Does it say the amount?
By my calculation, and I yield to the treasurer isn't here, unfortunately, but on the basis of 9/12 of the money approved, it would be $24,787.50.
So your motion includes that?
Yes, that
amount.
number.
Did you get that, Madam Clerk? Okay. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I would ask for a friendly amendment. The request is for 24,000.
Okay, we can leave it at 24,000. The exact amount is the 787.50, but I may be slightly out in my numbers, but 24,000 certainly covers most of it anyway.
Right. Did you get that, Madam Clerk?
I can say that.
Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Chamberlain.
I'd just like to speak in support of that motion that was just made, based on some wonderful feedback from the community about visiting the center at Open Doors, and their plan going forward is very viable, and I think it's a way of finally showing a bit of support for this group and what they've done on behalf of our community.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I just want to say that this group has done everything that council has asked them to do. They've brought their proposed budget, their business plan. They've even got the number of hours that volunteers are committing to the operation. And it's just wonderful the way that they've got this set up. So I certainly have no problem supporting this.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Boddy.
I just have a question. In the report, they talk about tax consequences, if tax consequences should arise, and it seems to me from the report that they're asking us to make a decision about who's paying taxes. Do I understand that correctly? I'm just reading, I don't know what page this is.
I think it's page 4 of the report.
I think we should make a decision on that if it's required. No.
Yes.
If I could, Your Worship, through to Councillor Boddy, the agreement with the Community Waterfront Heritage Centre speaks to taxation, and if it were to happen, then they are responsible for it.
Thank you.
Okay. So we don't need that included in the motion. It's in the agreement. Okay. Councillor McManaman.
And thank you, Your Worship. That was my first question. The second one, it discusses the Owen Sound Museum Board, their 2014 budget. So I guess a question to the city manager, how do we, would there be a subsequent report on that, I suppose? Is that how we, if this motion was to pass? And there, it certainly appears that there would be a budget issue with the museum board.
In this report, we simply wanted to remind council that at budget time, those were the funds allocated. They're being reallocated now. Obviously, the museum board probably budgeted based on, because the decision had already been made at budget time that they would not be operating that facility. So they allocated those funds in a different way. They'll either have to redo their budgeting, or as indicated, there's a potential that they may run a deficit. I don't believe, though, that that's something I can report on. That's something the museum board would have to deal with.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in, sorry, Councillor Lemon.
Just to wind up, the point, one of the things that was mentioned was when I was there on the second day of doors open, they were at 499 visitors, and a whole bunch and had stopped counting, and a whole bunch of people came in. But to get 500 people to that museum in that short a length of time, I think is fantastic. And the reaction to the people who visited it was also super supportive, and I think that they're on the right track, and this is going to bring more action to our waterfront, which I believe is desirable. And I will ask for a recorded vote.
All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is carried. Madam Clerk, if you would poll council, please.
Since it was unanimous, it's not necessary to have a recorded vote because all the people are identified who are here.
You did ask for one, Councillor Lemon.
Okay, fine.
Councillor Boddy?
In favor?
Councillor Chamberlain? In favor. Councillor Lemon?
In favor.
Councillor McManaman?
In favor.
Councillor Purdon? In favor. Councillor Twaddle?
In favor.
Councillor Wright?
In favor.
Acting Mayor Adair?
In favor.
The motion is carried with 8 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thank you. The other item that was being brought forward at this time is a report from the Art Gallery Director, reincorporating of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery. That's item 12B9. Page 192 if you're using paper.
Your Worship, I would move the recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Wright.
I have a question on this report. I just, this goes forward, and if the library is incorporated, I know that the
Art Gallery.
The Art Gallery, I'm sorry. I know that Virginia's here, perhaps. I'm not sure who can answer that. Through you to whoever can answer this question. This goes through and the gallery is incorporated. What happens to the paintings? Do they still belong to the city? Or do they belong to the corporation?
I'll take the first stab and Virginia can do cleanup with the right answer. This is only a first step to look at whether they should incorporate or not.
Right.
So it's certainly not a fait accompli at all. It's to do the appropriate background research and look at whether this is a positive thing for the art gallery and for the community. In regard to the collection, I know that there are some interesting rules around that it will always be in the ownership of the public, if you will, but I'll let Virginia answer that more completely, if I could.
Well, I support them incorporating because I know that that enables them to collect grants from various organizations that they're not entitled to now. My only concern is that the public still holds the ownership of the paintings.
Yeah, the majority of pieces in the Tom Thompson Art Gallery collection are actually cultural property. That means they're national treasures, they're owned by the people of Canada, so really they do belong to the public, and they belong here in Owen Sound. So this gallery is always rooted to this community. The gallery will remain in this community, the collection remains here. So there's no, in one sense, the ownership of the paintings, really, it is the people of Canada.
That's great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
They're very valuable.
I'm going to go to Councillor Boddy, then Councillor Purdon, and then Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. The gallery boards present and past over the number of years have looked at this. The gallery has limitations acquiring funds from certain corporations that will not donate money to an agent or a facility that is operated by a municipal or provincial government, because there's a possibility of the money being pulled back into the municipality. Given the things that have gone on with the Detroit Art Gallery over the last few years, people are reluctant to donate pieces of art to a municipality. As Virginia stated, in Canada, you can't go out and sell a Thompson from an art gallery without getting consent. However, to ensure that if the gallery got into trouble, that we wouldn't transfer a piece of art to the National Gallery, to the AGO in Toronto, to the McMichael, to somewhere else, that's part of what this study will show, is how we can put controls onto it so that the pieces of art will not be moved out of Owen Sound ever without the consent of council. We would look at funding models between the city and the art gallery. We would look at how staffing gets transferred. All these things will get looked at by this study with McCartney, Tetro, and figure out how to do it right so that all of our concerns, that we can probably come up with 10 if we start to debate them tonight, make sure that they're covered in the agreement. Talking to different councillors over the last couple of days, Councillor Purdon may mention our conversation today. She's had experience in something like this in Grey Bruce County, and there is a mechanism that was put together. Across the country, the Glenbow Museum is an art gallery in Calgary that has been owned by the province of Alberta. Within the last number of years, they've done exactly what our art gallery is doing for the exact same reasons. They parted from the province, they incorporated themselves, And with similar conditions, the province of Alberta didn't want the Glenbow selling any pieces of art. They continued to provide funding, and it just allowed the gallery to set up on its own and in the long run lessen its burden on the province, or in our case on the city, by being able to raise funds and raise other pieces, collect other pieces of Thompsons that could find their way home to On Sound. So that's the thinking. It's been ongoing for several years, and we're at a point that we think we need to move forward.
Yeah. And further to what Councillor Boddy has said, not just corporations, but there are certain foundations, granting agencies that we are precluded from being able to apply for funding for. And, you know, as everyone knows these days, having diverse revenue streams is very important for the survival of any organization.
Okay. Councillor Purdon.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm pleased that the Art Gallery is undertaking this investigation, and I did speak with Councillor Boddy earlier today about the experience of the Blue Water Board of Education and the Outdoor Education Centre, where they established a foundation to actually provide independence for that site and to protect it as well from being sold in a really difficult financial situation. Then the Blue Water Board and the new foundation entered into a partnership agreement that has worked very well. So it's a great example, and it makes everyone a little bit nervous, I think, sometimes thinking about this when the board, I was on the new foundation board, when the board won't have total control over the new foundation and the outdoor education and its programming, but it has actually allowed a lot of creative work to be done there, and it has been a win-win for the community, allowed lots of investment into that site without having to worry about the Board of Education having any liability for those types of things. So I think it's a great opportunity to look at something like that for the Art Gallery.
And that's why we've hired McCartney Tetrel. They have a vast amount of experience dealing with not-for-profits, dealing with situations like this. So if anybody's going to be able to give really an expert opinion on how we would go forward and why we would go forward in one direction versus another, they're the ones that are going to be able to give us that information.
Just before I go to Councillor McManaman, I'd like to thank Councillor Boddy and Councillor Purdon. One of my questions was, are there examples of this? And of course, Councillor Boddy, you gave the example of the Art Gallery in Calgary, and I had forgotten about, I hadn't forgotten about the Outdoor Ed Centre, but I had forgotten about how that all came by. Thank you.
And there are a number of other examples as well that can be drawn upon. You know, municipalities have many responsibilities. They deal with many different services. A public art gallery is a slightly different animal, and I think while the gallery supports the city and the city supports the gallery in obviously very important ways, there are some things in regards to operations and such as well where one is neither fish nor fowl.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you. And I support you need to hire an expert if you're going to move forward, as you just said. The McCartney Tetrel, how are they being paid? Who's paying?
They are being paid by the Tom Thompson Art Foundation, so there will be no expense to the city for this.
And the second question, do you have a timeline?
We'll get the timeline back from McCartney Tetrel. At this point, they're just beginning to look at what their recommendations are going to be. So until we know what those are, I don't think we really do have a timeline. Sometime in
2014? Probably.
I would just be guessing at this point.
All right, thank you.
All right, are there any further questions or any discussion on this? We have a motion before us to accept the staff recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, and thanks to the Art Gallery Board and the Foundation for bringing this forward. This sounds very exciting, and I know that we all look forward to seeing the reports as we move forward.
Great. Thank you.
Now, if we could get back to our regular agenda here. We have the consent agenda before us. If someone would like to move that. Moved by Councillor Wright.
I will move it, but it's a huge consent agenda. There's a lot of things in there. I guess we show them on the screen, do we?
Yes.
Yeah, it is a huge consent agenda, and some really good things in there. The bike ride and the hospital walk and run and the tournaments galore and all kinds of things, but I'd be happy to move that.
Thank you. And some business licenses, and there's a little bit of everything in the consent agenda tonight. Councillor McManaman to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Worship. I can't let this opportunity go by without pointing out the number, as Councillor Wright just has, the number of different events that are being held and the number of people that it's going to draw in for all these different events. Summerfolk, Salmon Spectacular, several ball tournaments, hockey tournaments. And I can't let it pass without pointing out to Council again, every one of them are paying rental fees for the facilities they're using. So, and we know it will happen. There'll be a request coming sometime in the next few months where somebody's going to ask for free rentals. And I just can't let this opportunity go by to say, if we're going to consider that, then we'd better go back and there must be 12 groups on here that are paying full rental fees for their facilities. So that's just my, what would you call that?
Your 2 cents
Sorry.
worth, Councillor.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Anything else to the consent agenda? All those in favor? That motion is carried. We have reports. The first report is from Human Resources, Employee Health and Safety Wellness Fair. And just jump right in. Yes.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. My name is Annie Sylvester. I work in the HR department here with the city. I'm excited to be here to talk to you tonight about a health, safety, and wellness initiative that the HR department as well as the staff committee have been working very hard on for the past few months. The initiative is a health, safety, and wellness fair for our city employees, and we've named that fair Health Stock 2014. What is a health, safety, and wellness fair? It's going to be an educational, interactive, proactive wellness initiative for, as I said, our city employees. Why should we, the City of Owen Sound, have a fair for our employees? These are the objectives that we've identified. We want to keep our employees healthy and safe. First and foremost, we want everyone to go home at the end of the day and see their family and be healthy and be safe when they do that. We want to increase our employee wellness. Our safety program is working really well. Our WSIB costs are down. So now we want to take that focus and put it onto employee wellness, both in the workplace and personal wellness. We have some compliance with legislation as well. Under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, we do have to provide our due diligence to protect our workers. So the training piece is going to be met at this fair. We're looking to increase our employee morale, engagement, and retention. We have had a lot of turnover in the past recent months, and we're hoping that putting on an event like this is going to show our employees that we do care about them and about their personal wellness, which will hopefully help engage them and retain them as well. We're going to hopefully decrease our cost to the organization. The more healthy and well our employees are, the more engaged they're going to be at work, the less they'll be absent, so that will lower our short-term disability costs as well as our WSIB costs. And again, the more healthy and well our employees are, it's going to increase our productivity, which is going to in turn provide better services to our taxpayers. Oops. We took a look at what are making City of Owen Sound employees unhealthy. So we looked at our occupational injuries. So these are the injuries that are happening at work. Slips, trips, and falls, repetitive strain injuries, and lifting injuries were our top 3 areas where employees are being injured at work. So those are 3 of the areas that we're really going to focus on at the fair. We also looked at our non-occupational illnesses and injuries. We took a look at our drug plan to see what are the top 3 costs that employees are spending their drug plan dollars on. It's cholesterol medication, blood pressure medication, and mental illness medication. So those are another 3 areas that we're going to be really focusing on at our fair to try and decrease the costs in our drug plan as well as increase our employee wellness. The different activities and information we're going to have at the fair. Again, employee wellness, stress management, information on mental health, heart health, health and nutrition, workplace safety, as well as injury and illness prevention. We have a variety of different public, local, non-for-profit organizations that are going to be at the fair to provide this information. So Public Health is doing our health and nutrition booth. Heart and Stroke is doing heart health. The Conservation Authority is going to look at hiking trails throughout the area that employees can take part in. Fire prevention's there to do fire prevention at home. The Owen Sound Police Services is going to do a safe driving display, which includes employees actually getting in the go-karts and kind of doing that distracted driving simulation. We have the library doing wellness at the library, Canadian Mental Health, Owen Sound Tourism, and then our current benefit provider, Sun Life, are going to be there, as well as our employee assistant provider, which is Chappelle FGI. So they'll all be at the fair providing information. Employees will get a passport when they get to the fair. This is our way to ensure that they are going to the different booths and getting the information. So they'll get a stamp once they've been to a booth. You have to have a certain number of stamps in order to be entered into the draw prizes. And then we'll also use the passport as our proof of training, so we can see what employees took what training and put that on their personnel file. This is kind of a mock-up of the floor plan. The venue is the farmers market, both inside and out. So you can see the different activities and displays we'll have at the fair there. So the date of the fair is June 19th. It's from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. We've asked managers and supervisors to allow their employees to attend for 2 hours that day so they can receive the information that will be available at the fair. On behalf of the committee and the city employees, I would like to thank council for graciously sponsoring and part of the healthy lunch that we are going to have at the fair that day. And we're really looking forward to the event, and hopefully it can become something annual. So we hope to see you all there.
So we'll be there barbecuing hamburgers and hot dogs?
The event
sausages?
is being
Yes.
catered
Oh.
by the European Bakery. They're providing a healthy lunch for us. But I know some members of council have committed to helping maybe serve the fruit salad that we're having for dessert. So no hot dogs this year.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council? Thank you for the work. It looks like it's going to be actually fun and interesting. So
Great.
Good. Our next report is from our city manager, and it's on a pay equity analysis. Madam City Manager, would you like to?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the report is fairly self-explanatory. In order to come into compliance with the pay equity legislation and with the requirements of the Commission, we are recommending that we hire McDowell Associates to assist us.
Right. So there's a recommendation. Moved by Councillor Wright. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Lemon.
Yes. I'm not crazy about hiring consultants, but in this case, we do not have the staff in-house to do this task. And indeed, we're short-staffed in HR, so there will be no impact on the tax rate for this at this point.
Well, Your Worship, through to Councillor Lemon, because we can gap that position that's not filled at the moment, there should not be an impact.
Councillor Purdon?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in support of this motion. This is highly specialized work, and I think we absolutely need to get it right and have the people who have the skills doing the work. So even better when we can get it through gapped salaries.
Motion is on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. We have a presentation from our Director of Community Service on summer programs 2014. Summer is upon us. And go ahead.
Well, thank you. At your last meeting, Council had asked that you have an update regarding summer recreation programs for 2014, and the timing's perfect as we head into summer and the end of the school year. So as we plan for our children to be active and healthy this summer, this might help give some ideas. So once again, we've partnered with the Family Y, and we'll be offering 2 sessions of swimming lessons at Harrison Park, so the tradition continues at the pool there. Registration for those programs is at the YMCA here in Owen Sound. If you have a non-resident card for a minor sport, you're eligible to register. You don't need another card, or you can pay a 40% fee for in lieu of a non-resident card. So lots of opportunities to learn to swim. We have some school groups starting to do lessons now at the pool. There's lots of open swim times as well, starting now until the end of June. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon you can swim at the pool. In June, at the end of June through August, you can swim every day, Monday through Sunday in the afternoon and again in the evenings. We have Tim Horton free summer swims. Tim Horton is a great partner for us at the pool. They provide Thursday evening swims and Sunday morning swims. As well, we have 8 great community-sponsored swims, and certainly thanks to the businesses and local charities that have sponsored those swims. They happen Wednesday evenings from 6 till 7:30. So I know we're ready for some warm summer weather, and free and open swim and lessons at the park is a great way to celebrate summer. In partnership with Owen Sound Minor Soccer, we are presenting a minor soccer camp. There's 2 weeks of camps. The first one is July 7th. The second one is a 4-day camp beginning right after the civic holiday weekend in August. There's full or half-day camps. Children can be age 4 to 18 years to participate in these camps. Registration for the soccer camp is here at City Hall. You can call or come in person. The instructor for these camps is Keith Mason. Keith is a coach at the University of Guelph, really brings a lot of skill and knowledge to the game of soccer. So a great opportunity for children of all ages. In terms of skating and hockey and skills, we've taken a different approach this summer. We're going to be offering an 8-week session. The first one is power skating, so that happens on Tuesdays. We have Mrs. Denise Reed. My kids like to call her Mrs. No Pucks. She's a well-known power skating instructor. She's coached everything from the OHL to the Can Skate program. Denise is a great power skating coach. So we have 8 weeks every Tuesday, Elite, Pee Wee Bantam, and then Bantam Midget. And again, registration for those camps is here at City Hall. And then on Wednesdays, for 8 weeks, starting June 25th, we have hockey skills. Brad Tiley is coaching those, so Brad's had stops in the NHL, the AHL, as well as in Europe. Brad brings tremendous knowledge to the game of hockey. So again, that happens at the Julie MacArthur Regional Rec Center, and again, registration's here at City Hall. So that's a pretty fast rundown. So where do you get more information? All the information on summer programs, swimming lessons, soccer camps, hockey and skills is on our website as well. Pick up the summer activities guide available here at City Hall at Tourism, or just call City Hall and we can give you information and take your registrations here. Registrations for swimming at the Y.
Great, thank you. So there's swimming, hockey, and soccer this summer. Any questions from members of council? Yes, Councillor Chamberlain.
If I could just comment on how helpful that community guide is to people, and I know that at the seniors fair this week that we'll be having that available for people to pick up there as well.
Any other comments? Great, thank you very much for the presentation. The Manager of Planning, you're on deck again for the Georgian Shores Marina application for site plan approval, item 12B5. I believe there is a recommendation in front of us. Yes, Councillor Chamberlain.
I'll move the recommendation as presented.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could we just have a brief overview from staff on this? That's okay.
Certainly.
Yes, Ms. Coulter, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, Georgian Shores Marina has applied to amend their existing site plan to facilitate the demolition of the existing picnic shelter washroom building and for the construction of a boater's lounge on the property that would include washrooms as well as showers. that building would be fully accessible. We had brought forward a report last September, and actually after the council agenda was published, we'd received a request from SOAN to hold that until they had an opportunity to look at the application. On May 23rd, we received a letter to indicate that they have worked with Georgian Shores Marina and now have no concerns. So this is the property on the east side of 3rd Avenue East. It includes the Georgian Shores Marina. We've had earlier site plan approvals. The property's designated waterfront mixed use. The proposal conforms to zoning, so we're recommending approval subject to the conditions that are outlined in Appendix A to allow for the construction of the new Boaters Lounge.
Any other questions for the planner? There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor? This motion is carried. Thank you. That's a very exciting, as they slowly move ahead with that redevelopment of that property. Facilities booking, re the Dodge Rodeo and Country Music Festival at Victoria Park. Yes, Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to move the recommendation that we get into discussions with the Country Music Festival for Victoria Park on September 26th, 27th, 28th. The recommendation is listed. The staff work with the event organizer. My question to staff is the use of the sports field there and the damage that could occur from a rodeo in late September on that property. And I realize you haven't even had the discussions with the event organizer yet, but that would, I would think that could do quite a bit of damage at that time of year. So I don't know if you care to comment or just take that as a comment from me.
Ms. Coulter, did you have anything to?
Thank you, Worship. The request really, this will allow us with some certainty to have council approve the use of the venue for that event in late September and work with Mr. Caddo of Muddy Boots Entertainment to develop an agreement. If council wishes to provide some direction with respect to the use of that infield, that will certainly help guide our discussions with Mr. Caddo. What we've done in the past where we have an event that's using a playing field is to look for security to offset any damage, but if council wishes, we could look at alternatives to using the infield perhaps that would avoid the use of the track. I haven't seen a site plan for the layout of the event at this time.
Was that what you're asking for, Councillor McManaman? You just wanted to assure that there was some...
I don't want to hamstring the discussions, and I want that, but we can have a deposit of, you know, to redo the entire field, tens of thousands of dollars, and it still wouldn't do any good at that time of year. You'd lose the rest of the fall, all rest of next spring. So I just think there needs to be some discussion around what takes place on the infield, whether it's, you know, seating is one thing, 20 horses running all day is quite another. So that can just come back in the report, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Lemon, you had your hand up?
Yes, Your Worship, and this comes from experience. In the fall, when you play football on that field, you tear the heck out of the turf already. I don't think horses are going to do much more damage than regular football playing on that field, which has occurred. And the thing is, we want to use our parks to the maximum and bring events that bring people to Owen Sound. And a rodeo, to me, would not cause any more damage than the fall fair does each year with the equipment that they put up and the parking on the infield, which has gone on.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. I'm not sure who does more damage than what, but we've asked that it be looked into, and I know our staff do protect the city when they can. All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. If someone could get Councillor Twaddle, please. Come on back. Our next item is yet another rental. We have quite a few of those tonight. Lots of people doing lots of things. This is the Broomball tournament. It's Councillor Boddy.
Thank you. I'll move this. The same group that I believe a couple of weeks ago we approved their provincial application to host the 2015 provincial Broomball championships are moving ahead, seeking the 2016 national Broomball championships. So the whole country coming to Owen Sound, and these are examples of the sports tourism that has been generated by the new facilities, and it'll benefit hotels, restaurants, absolutely everybody in town. So this is another great one, and I'm happy to move the recommendations as set out in the report.
Thank you. Any questions? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Our next item is from Engineering Assistance, the Ride Don't Hide Canadian Mental Health Ride. There is a recommendation from our engineering staff. Councillor Purdon?
Oh, is this 12B8?
12B8, yes.
Right. So I've moved the recommendation.
Councillor McManaman?
Just one point. Is this not a county road? And it doesn't reference that at all in the recommendation. So, I mean, I'm in favor of the recommendation, but I
might have to ask the county. The Director of Community Services.
This isn't our report, but I know we're booking the facility. Our engineering division is working with the county on the road closures, so they are ensuring each other is satisfied with the route.
Councillor Purdon?
I know this has nothing to do with the motion, but maybe the council could consider putting a team in. I'd be happy to lead that up.
Okay, we'll wait for your email. Any further discussion on this issue? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Yeah. I suspect you vote with your feet on whether or not you want to be part of the team. We have dealt with the Art Gallery Director's report. Minutes of boards and committees for approval. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in front of us. What would council like to do? Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Acting Worship, move to approve 12C 1 to 6, including accessibility bylaw, economic development, joint operations, accessibility, operations, again, wastewater treatment plant. It's a very diverse group of minutes.
All right. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two questions. The first from the bylaw committee minutes, and I appreciate Councillor Dare bringing forward the topic about the traffic violation in the city bylaws. My question is from the minutes. It just states that a bit of the process that would take place, but it doesn't say what, if anything, is to happen now or not happen now. So could I ask for clarification?
I believe at this point, nothing further is happening until council decides that it wishes to do that and put resources behind it to make it happen. It would take quite a bit of research. I know the model that has been bandied around has been that of the City of Toronto, but the City of Toronto is governed under the City of Toronto Act, a separate act. So authorities that they have, other municipalities don't. There are other municipalities that have done stuff like this. It would take quite a bit of research. It's certainly something that can happen, but council would need to give direction to make that happen and figure out how to fund that.
Well, thanks for that. And I stand to be correct, but I thought it was the police chief's suggestion that we move in this direction at one budget meeting. So I just.
Our police board chair, or police board member is interested in answering that question.
There have been a couple of changes made, that such as, according to city bylaws, making U-turns or going through that are charged now under the city bylaw rather than under the Highway Traffic Act. But it takes a lot of time to look all of these things up and sort through them all, and I believe they are working on them, but you have to pick them out, what we can do, and then the bylaw has to be changed, and then the bylaw committee has to go through the properties. That's, we have Jeff there looking after us, and that's, so then we have to get the bylaw prepared and bring it to council for approval. So we are working on it, it's just a slow process.
And sorry, just for, who's working on the police board?
Police board.
Okay.
The police board isn't doing the work. The police are doing the work.
But on behalf of the police?
On behalf of the police board.
No, that's...
no, on behalf of the bylaw committee.
So that's fine. I just, it looked like a potential source of additional revenue.
Yes.
And so without, it's difficult to know if resources are required, but it, would generate what type of revenue that they might offset each other. Anyway, if someone is continuing to look at it, I guess that's the answer.
The police board itself has looked at trying to get the traffic school back, because that's a source of revenue for the city. And then the chief at the, it wasn't the chief inspector at our bylaw committee meeting, he mentioned that in some municipalities like Toronto, they have two different, although Toronto is governed under its own laws, really, they have two different ways of fining. You can ask, do you want to pay a $50 municipal ticket, or do you want to pay a $110 Provincial Highway Traffic Act? So normally they opt for the $50 ticket. So we're working on that. It won't be the same as Toronto, I can tell you that.
Councillor Chamberlain?
If I can just comment that it's a very interesting bylaw meeting we had, and I think Councillor Wright, you wanted to maybe draw attention to the motion that you have within this about the parking sign for the 11th Avenue East and 8th Street area that we talked about. Do you want to bring that? I know it's in here and it'll be passed okay, but do you want to comment on it? We have, there's been some complaints about the parking up on 11th Avenue between 8th and 9th Street, and this is due to the fact that they run out of parking at Georgian College, so the students are taking up spaces. There is one, the police have noticed that there is one situation where they're parking right up against the corner, but that's because there's no sign that says you cannot park from here to corner like there is at other major, and it is causing a visual problem. So the bylaw committee is requesting that the operations department place a sign up there, and I'm assuming, and perhaps I shouldn't, but I'm assuming that by accepting these minutes that will be done. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Councillor Twaddle?
Thank you, Councillor Adair. I'd ask that on page 198, which is page 5 of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, that the item with regards to the creation of an Accessibility Advisory Committee be pulled and dealt with separately.
Okay. Any further questions on the bulk of the bylaws? Or the bulk of the minutes? All save and except what Councillor Twaddle has asked to be pulled? Seeing none, all those in favor? So we're dealing with one item from the Accessibility Committee. And go ahead, Councillor Twaddle.
And thank you. The motion that was approved by the committee was to appoint an Accessibility Advisory Committee. We're in the process. Council has just agreed to, at our last meeting, I believe, the services of a consultant to write the transportation piece of the city's accessibility plan. That will inform how specialized transit will be dealt with going forward. And normally, at this point in time, the creation of a new committee would be come forward at the end of the year when we do our once-a-year committee review. So I would ask that this motion be tabled pending completion of the transit portion of the accessibility plan, and then deferred unto the discussion at the end of this year to the committee structure for 2015.
Right. We have a motion.
That was my motion.
Your motion. Yep. Councillor Lemon.
Well, for many years we had a review committee which reviewed the applications and with a method of appealing if the reviewer did not recommend that someone be approved. Right now, we have a reviewer, but we have no appeals process to the review committee. And the reviewer is being inundated with applications because the service provider, there are a lot of people who qualify for both, and an increasing number of them are moving over to specialized because of the use of school buses on the general runs and, for that matter, on the accessible runs. And this is creating a bit of problem for people who can simply not get up on these buses. And when we're finished with this, I would like to bring something else up about the continued use of buses not approved by this council, which is in contravention of the contract we have with First Student.
Okay. Councillor Twa.
So thank you. Just to that point, I agree with what Councillor Lemon is saying. Until we have the transportation piece for the accessibility plan, which we're required to have and it is in process, we won't know how the application process or how specialized transit is going to proceed in the future. So I think it's not inappropriate, it's just premature. So I would just ask that that be deferred, and that the consultant who is doing this piece for us is also he was also the resource for the Provincial Advisory Committee that developed the transportation piece of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act. So I think he's going to give us really sound advice on the best way to proceed.
Okay. Any further questions on Councillor Twa's motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. So those are the bulk of the regular minutes. We have the minutes of in-camera meetings of council on May 26 and the water treatment plant upgrade ad hoc committee on June 4th. Councillor Twa?
I would move approval of those minutes.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor? I can find my sheet. We have Councillor Wright for other business.
Thank you very much. A couple of weeks ago, I attended FCM on behalf of the county, and I just brought this one resolution to us because we had dealt with it just a short time before at council, and it was to maintain the current system door-to-door postal delivery in Canada. The town of Halton Hills, Ontario had put in this resolution, and the resolution was that they wanted mail to be delivered door-to-door. There was a lot of discussion, and of course you realize there are people from all across Canada at this conference, and so it was very interesting listening to the debate. The debate went on for about 45 minutes, a very serious debate, and in the end it was lost. So there was no support across Canada to keep to continue mail delivery across Canada. So that was a bit of a surprise. But some of the debated questions were interesting because one of the next motions we dealt with was that Canada should have a one-day-a-year exercise day where we get out and exercise and do more walking and have a healthy Canada Day, and that followed getting up and walking a block to get your mail. So that might have been one of the reasons that it was defeated. But I'm going to put a couple of these resolutions on the email and send them out to you because they do deal with some interesting facts. And it's just unfortunate that this conference is only held in Ontario every third year because it is one of the better conferences you can go to. The only problem is when it's out east or out west, it's very expensive. So we can only afford to go when it's in Ontario, but it was a great conference.
Well, thank you for that update.
May I raise one more issue, could I?
Well, I was going to thank you for that. I will go back to you. I was at an FCM several years ago when it was in Toronto, and they're very good conferences. But yes, unless it's in Ontario, it's very expensive to go to, and I thank you for the report. You had one other item?
I just want to ask, just a question of curiosity. We had a question asked of us tonight about water. During that rough winter we had asked people to keep their taps running. Did we acknowledge the cost of that somehow? We did. Okay, that's all I really want to know. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chamberlain.
I could just start with, this is Seniors Month, and we're very fortunate in our community through the United Way that they host this Seniors Fair. And this is the 7th year in a row. It has grown that over 1,000 people attended. There's groups come by bus down from Cape Croker to come to our Seniors Fair. It is a great resource of finding out many, many things about our community. And many of the local seniors participate in it by showcasing their hobbies, things like Tai Chi and choirs, and it's just a very wonderful thing. And I just wanted to just help boost their attendance if they need that on this Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock at Bayshore. The second thing was, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that we had received 15 white spruce trees from the Healthy Communities Conference, and I'd like to now report that they've all been planted in Harrison Park, right near the renovation that we did for the drainage ditch, and these will grow to be as tall as some of the other trees in Harrison Park, so it'll be fun watching them grow, and they look very good there. The other tree that was planted yesterday at the Grey Sauble Conservation Authority as part of their Memorial Forest Commemorative Day was a sycamore, and it was to represent all of the people who wanted to be remembered in this way through for their loss of a family member. It was over 500 people attended, and it was a very, very well received presentation in our community, and we are very fortunate with the trees in this community, whether they are gifts or whether they are representing people that we care about. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Chairman. I'll be attending a little bit of the Seniors Fair, bringing words on behalf of Council on Wednesday morning. The night before, tomorrow night, I'm going to be at the Armories reviewing the cadets. So the city has, we have young people, we have seniors, we have everybody living here. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Councillor, or Acting Mayor, I should say, I apologize. The question, and was been raised with me a number of times, we're continuing to use the mini school buses when our buses break down, and some days we have as many as 3 of them on. That's happened a couple of times, and these are dissuading people from using our transit service. And under the contract, the city negotiated with First Student, any buses used must be approved by the city. And these are really not great buses for adults. We've had incidents where the driver has got to get off the bus and help the person up the stairs because they can't make it. They're very steep entryways, and there's very little distance between the seats within the bus. You get almost claustrophobic because I've been on them. My question through you to the city manager, are we going to require, because it's going to be probably a year before we get the new buses, being very realistic, is there not, because we have to approve them, we have not approved these buses for use. Can we put a little pressure on First Student to bring in something that is more appropriate than a unmodified school bus? It's also confusing to riders because they're looking for the blue transit bus and something yellow comes around and they think that's not my bus. It's not a great situation.
Madam Manager?
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Lemon. We can certainly have that discussion. I have had it at a preliminary level. I think I will be better equipped once we have a decision from council on the types of buses, and we then know how long it's going to be, and we can also have a more thorough look at the current contract to ensure that we have an ability to request that and to some degree enforce that request. So well, I think it's going to happen, but I think in fairness to First Student, we haven't given them clear direction as quickly as we thought we could.
And I would agree with that comment, but it's very clear in the contract. It specifies it must be approved by the city. I can't remember the exact number, but there's a line in there that's very, very specific on that. And my concern is the longer they use the buses, the more the number of riders we get is going to continue to deteriorate. And which isn't in our best interest financially and not in the best interest of the community as a general. And so I'm wondering if we could not put them on notice that we are expecting a more robust bus for public transit, because they are operating other systems. So I'm assuming that they must have access to these buses. But those little ones, they're very, very uncomfortable to ride in. And if anybody on council wants to experience it firsthand, they'll know what I'm talking about. It's like climbing a mountain to get on them.
We certainly can have that more fulsome discussion, I think, when we have the transit meeting. I've had that discussion with them. Clearly, we were supposed to have allowed them to buy new buses by now. And I've asked them if they have spare buses. They don't. Our system is like everyone else's system, that it has a specific number of buses and a requirement to have that spare bus with that system. But I'll certainly inquire again, Councillor. But the longer-term solution is that we get new buses.
Well, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you on that. The problem is those buses should be recycled into new steel or something, or aluminum in some cases. But there must be somewhere where they could get something on an interim basis, because the buses they're using are not really, they're not at all designed for transit buses.
I don't disagree. I will ask the question and see where we can get to on that.
Thank you. I guess the real question is, when is council going to give them a bus to order? We've been having committee meetings for several months. We should have given them instructions months ago on a new bus design. So I think some of that delay, or if all of the delay is here, I think First Student is ready to buy new buses the moment we tell them to buy them. So I would like to see that report back as soon as possible. Is there any other business? Seeing none, a motion for the committee to rise and report would be in order.
Move the committee rise and report.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. All those in favor? That is carried. Resolution adopting proceedings in Committee of the Whole.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
All those in favor? That motion is carried. Are there any notices of motion?
No more.
Seeing none. New business by resolution. Bylaw. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Just on the question about the bylaws, I just want to ensure that item 18C is being dealt with separately, not with all the other bylaws. The purchase of the home on.
That is my understanding.
That's correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you proceed with the bylaws, please, Councillor Purdon?
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wright, that bylaws number 2014-083, 099, 101, and 102 be passed and enacted.
Thank you. All those in favor? That motion is carried.
And then moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wright, that bylaw number 2014-100 be passed and enacted.
And that is the bylaw pertaining to the purchase of property at 803 5th Avenue A East. All those in favor? All those opposed? I would ask if the clerk would please poll council.
Councillor Body?
In favor?
Councillor Chamberlain?
In favor?
Councillor Lemon?
In favor.
Councillor McManaman?
Opposed?
Councillor Purdon?
In favor?
Councillor Twaddle?
In favor?
Councillor Wright?
In favor.
Acting Mayor Adair?
In favor?
Motion is carried with 7 in favor and 1 opposed.
Thank you. Is there any other business before us? I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.